Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ollie, it's Ava, and we're joined today by a zebra jumping spider, Ava.
You were doing like the news agency intro there, weren't you?
Yeah, should we? It's John.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Are you Lewis or Emily?
Go again.
It's John.
It's Lewis.
It's Emily. I was that close to taking my vocal register up a couple of tones, but I thought that would be inappropriate.
Well, it wouldn't be right either. I think she's got a deeper voice than you do.
It's Emily.
She has the most enviable radio voice, in my opinion.
God, it's husky, isn't it?
I've forgotten her name. There's a girl from Channel 4 as
Emily
well.
Mateless.
Oh, you're bloody fuck this morning, aren't you? There's a girl on Channel 4 as well who's got a really lovely voice. She did the report yesterday on Faiza Shaheen, actually.
Bit of news yesterday.
Well, there was that, wasn't there? What did you make of that?
It seems hasty.
Hasty?
It seems hasty what Nigel Farage has done.
It did feel a little bit put together, didn't it?
Because if you spend the time before being like, I'm standing, and then general election campaigns are only 6 weeks long, and you waste the first 10 days of the campaign, let's call it 40 days for the campaign, you've wasted a quarter of it by saying I'm not gonna stand. And then you do it in week 2.
Those polls are looking good though, aren't they? And by the sounds of things, he's already been semi-canvassing in Clacton.
Well, yeah, he would have been out with the various candidates on the campaign trail, won't he?
Because what he said informed his decision was that he was speaking to constituents there and he felt he was letting them down. Basically just saying his candidate was so crap. He felt...
He said... And this was, well, you were there, right? You were in the room, so you probably...
That doesn't mean I was listening.
So why do we send you to these things?
I don't know.
It's because you have to be there as a card-carrying member of Reform. So you spin it with us and you say, oh yeah, I'm going as a journalist.
Did you didn't enjoy my video of the wall of men that were next to me, and I said it was like I was at a Probus meeting. I don't understand what that is. Like, what's Probus? You know, it's almost like an old boys club. Let me get the definition, because I'm worried that I've got it wrong.
Is it like
for a clubs for retired or semi-retired people? They include business or professional people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Pro as in professional, bus as in business.
As in they now get their travel for free.
When you said pro, I genuinely thought you were referring like some kind of transport lobby group. Oh,
no. Because I think about a lot of Conservative MPs going canvass at the local Probus club. That's a show.
Oh, is it like a Rotary Club type thing?
It's exactly like a Rotary Club, yeah.
Okay.
Do you get the joke now?
Yes.
Would you say that was an all right joke? That's not too different from your normal laugh, which is quite concerning.
Yeah. I genuinely think I don't laugh that much. Listeners might disagree. We've changed the set.
Yeah.
We took your feedback on board. Are you happy now? Proud of yourselves?
We've got a real black curtain now, not a fake one. It's going to save Sean hours because he's had to
fucking
add
chroma keying that curtain in.
Yeah.
Poor bloke.
But now the question is, what's behind the curtain?
I don't know if they're ready for that.
It's an SNP meeting.
We've got Nicola Sturgeon back there, just hanging out.
We pull it back and there's all the campaign funds.
The camper van.
Yeah, the camper van.
Garage. Yeah, Nigel had a line. I think he was talking about a guy in Skeggy.
All right, we're just going to... Okay.
What? We talk about the news.
Nigel had a line.
Oh, I see. You said the polling was looking good and it had a semi earlier. That's double entendre.
Did I say the polling had a semi?
You said the polling was good, looking good, and then you said something about a semi.
Did I?
Yeah.
Laura's saying no.
You did, 100% you did.
Did I say that, Sean?
This is... Don't you lot fucking start this.
Shawnee, was there anything about a semi there?
Right. Time code this. If you did, all of this is staying in, and the audience will know that this was an abortive coup. You said it.
Okay. And if I didn't say it, what happens then?
I'll apologise.
All right.
I'll apologise.
Okay.
Can I talk about Nigel?
Please.
He said that he was struck. Something is happening in the country, is what he said. And I actually think the syntax of that statement reminded me of a sewer Twitter account that keeps sharing videos of the Germans. You've seen the Germans singing that Ausländer Raus song. There's like it's like a dance floor track, kind of like happy hardcore, and basically the German, when it gets played at like festivals and parties. Did you saw the video of like all those, no other word for them other than like elites at a party the other day in Germany singing? No? Okay. Well, so they sing this song, and in German it means foreigners out. It's like oh fucking, what's the name of the song? What's the name of the song that Will Griggs on Fire is set to? Anyway, when that Free from Desire.
Oh.
When that plays, and then English blokes will all congregate on the dance floor and sing Will Griggs on Fire, Your Defence is Terrified, which obviously isn't the lyrics of the song.
Well, I only know it from trade unions where they do actually just sing the actual lyrics.
Okay. Cool.
Or sometimes they sing Jeremy Corbyn.
Very cool.
But yeah, the point stands. Carry on.
Yeah. And so the Germans do this, and what it means, translated into English, they're chanting foreigners out.
Okay.
And this account keeps sharing that video going, something incredible is happening in Europe. And I wondered whether when Nigel kept saying something is happening, whether it was kind of an allusion to this sort of youth movement galvanizing against immigration and against liberal politics.
That's a really interesting point, because that ties into your tweet yesterday, which I thought was very insightful, actually. I mean that. No, I did. That was me being earnest.
We'll see about that.
No, but explain that tweet, because it was interesting.
So, what Nigel is referring to, and it relates to the conversation he had in Skeggy with the guy Nigel was essentially saying, people keep coming up to me and saying, what are you going to do? And I tell them I'm not standing. And there was this bloke in Skegness who essentially sort of shrugged his shoulders and was like, well, all right then. And it was clear, the way he puts it, was that the sense of disappointment in that young bloke when he told him he wasn't going to stand was palpable, such to the extent that he felt he was letting people down, so he's decided he's going to stand. Whether that's the case or not remains to be seen. But if you look at politics outside of the UK, particularly in Europe, but Canada and New Zealand as well, the complete destruction of support for either right-wing parties or radical right parties, there's a significant amount of support for them amongst younger demographics. In Israel, in particular, the sort of ultra-conservative political parties, a lot of their support is from younger demographics. AfD in Germany, a lot of support among younger demographics, and increasingly with National Rally, Front National in France. It is younger people that is sort of driving the energy of those movements. Famously, we're not seeing that here in the UK. There used to be a maxim, and John Byrne Murdoch did a really interesting data piece on this not too long ago in the FT, showing that whereas in a lot of other mature democracies, the younger generation, there's an inflection point where essentially they pivot and they move away from having left-wing sensibilities to more right-wing sensibilities and supporting conservative parties. The rationale of which would go, all of a sudden, once you become invested in a society and you care about conserving it, you're more interested in voting for a conservative party. But it's not been happening here in the UK. And my analysis is that there isn't something unique about young people in Britain that means that whether it's they're genetically predisposed to being left wing or any other reason that they just don't vibe with the Conservative Party. The reason, and this is why the Farage thing is significant, which I will get to in a minute. I realise I've been talking for a little bit of time. The only significant right-wing political party for the entirety of everyone under 30's political consciousness has been actively waging war on them. Whether that's via the inability to build enough houses to bring house prices down, whether it's taking the UK out of the European Union, which support for which is quite concentrated among younger people, but that doesn't just include things like freedom of movement and Erasmus. It's all that it's not just self-interest there. So it's a sort of ideological thing that connects to questions about identity liberals, identity conservatives, which is a conversation for another day. So why on earth would anyone under 30 be interested in supporting the Conservative Party when the Conservative Party is essentially the party of the asset class, is the party of homeowners? And you're seeing that in the campaign now, right? When we've spoken about national service already. That policy is a policy that's designed to appeal to people who have never done national service, never will do national service, people who are over 70. It's to appeal to the Conservative base. And it's a kicking of younger people. Tuition fees, another great example. All of a sudden, if you have a new political party, newish, with a charismatic leader on the right, all Nigel Farage has to do, in my opinion, to start building a base amongst these younger people is say, I will build 1 million houses every year that I'm in Parliament.
You think that's all he has to do?
I think that's all he has to do, genuinely.
Well, would they not have to drop their, because they have been piggybacking on some of the hate the young Tory policy. They were parroting the Mickey Mouse degrees line the other day.
Yeah.
They actually at one point nearly had quite a progressive student loan plan. Do you remember they were going to wipe student loan?
They're still, it's still their policy to do that for
nurses,
medical staff.
But they were at one point going to, Tice was, I think it was about a year and a half ago, he was really into this idea that you could just wipe student debt because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot cheaper for the country. You'd get more back in GDP.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what he said. Did you pick up on this yesterday, or did I see this somewhere else? When Nigel Farage was saying he wasn't interested in GDP, he was interested in GDP per capita. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, that is one of the ways that our political class have cheated economic growth in the last 30 years is immigration. So there's different ways to grow an economy, obviously, but a simple way is if you input more people into an economy, there are more agents of economic action, more people being paid salaries, more people spending money. So GDP grows. Per capita being the distinction of GDP per head, GDP per person. Obviously, if you're expanding a population, but GDP per capita is stagnant or possibly even decreasing, what's that telling you? It's that individuals are getting poorer. Yes, the economy as a whole is expanding in size because there are now more people within it, but people aren't necessarily getting richer.
Yeah.
And it's a fair piece of analysis.
And it goes back to the wage divide that we've seen over the last 10 years.
Yes. And the reason this is so dangerous for Keir Starmer is because at present, his party is not offering anything like the scale of change that young people in this country need. I've been making this point for some time. Regular listeners will appreciate, so I apologise for making this point over and over again. The landslide that they are likely to be elected on is about it's sadistic. It's punishing the Tory party. It's not because people have got a fucking hard-on for Keir Starmer. Basically no one has a hard-on for Keir Starmer, apart from the centrist dads that you interact with on Twitter occasionally. Sometimes we have them in the studio, not naming any names.
Trying to think who that would even be.
Laura knows who I'm talking about. Yeah, she does. And so you have this really broad but shallow...
Your dad?
Really broad but shallow electoral coalition. And I think Starmer has very, very little time. I think on a huge majority, he could be a one-term prime minister. There could be a one-term government. because they are essentially offering status quo. They are not offering a radical departure from neoliberal orthodoxy. They are committed to maintaining the fiscal rules of the Conservative Party.
Can you hit on that? Because that neoliberal orthodoxy thing drives me up the wall. No, because it's true.
Yeah.
It annoys me so much.
Yeah, well, look, well, this is the thing. Okay, so there's like there is a ginormously broad scope of political thought, right? From ideas that range from, radical extreme communism through to command economy, centralized fascist state, right? And further.
I know where I want to be.
Don't we all? And the Overton window in British politics is so narrow, and this is why, even though I regretted saying this on Laura Kunzberg's show, one of my closing remarks was, "We live in Thatcher's Britain." I was like, "You fucking cliched student politics hack. Why the hell did you say that?" But it's essentially true. Since Thatcher, the economic consensus in Britain is neoliberalism. And even though, for example, when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, what was Corbyn presenting? He was essentially presenting social democracy. He's described as hard left. Momentum is described as hard left. Their ideas are not hard left. Their ideas are left wing, sure. They're not communism, right? They're not, possibly to argue, they're not even Marxist, right? Anyway, conversation for another day. But because you're so set from Thatcher, Blair, Brown, Cameron, Osborne, the whole lot, in a very, very narrow space of thought, whenever you depart away from it, everyone goes, fucking hell. That is, no, absolutely not, Magic Grandpa. No, free broadband, are you fucking insane? I like paying Talk 30 quid a month.
Yeah.
Idiot.
For bad service.
Yes.
It's my kink. Speaking of which,
utility punishment.
JSM still outside my flat last night fitting Wi-Fi cables, weren't you?
You're kidding.
Yeah, weren't you? Why don't you piss off? When you're talking about the neoliberal umbrella, so like the Starmer policy that annoys me a lot is firstly the rail and secondly the NHS.
Yeah,
so when he's talking about nationalising rail,
having the umbrella company, yeah.
It's going to be an umbrella company, and every function that feeds into that government-owned, public-owned company will be a private entity, each of which has a monopoly on the rail that it uses. So you're outsourcing. That's Thatcher in principle.
Yeah.
And then the NHS as well. You've got this umbrella brand, NHS, public owned, and then feeding into that are all these private a lot of it is already privatized. You look at some of the consultants that they're paying up to, some consultants getting paid £8,000 a day. Do you know that? Because they're outsourcing. And all of the private drug companies that are being.
Do you ever regret being a journalist? That was new.
Why? Because my point was so shit. Is that what you meant?
Because if you'd have decided to become a doctor, you could be earning $8,000 a day doing locum shifts.
Yeah, but then I'd have to do some real work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry. I could be turning up to Reform press conferences, not listening to anything.
Yeah.
Save someone's life. You fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this private infrastructure, right, that sits underneath.
And then we talk about the prisons. The prisons are going to be our next big crisis. We've got these Victorian prisons across the country that are not fit for purpose. They are bursting at the seams. There are potential, sorry to be over dramatic, but there are actually human rights violations that are going on in our prisons because they are so overcrowded and prisoners aren't allowed to have time outside because there's not the staff or the facilities to cater to them. A lot of those prisons are outsourced to companies like Serco and G4S and definitely the systems that are around them, like taking prisoners to court and all of that. It's extraordinarily expensive. It is such a drain on the public purse. But because it's too ugly to bring the entire prison service back into the back into public ownership, it would make too terrible of a headline. No government is willing to do it. And it's going to be the next crisis.
Yeah.
And it's happening to every single public service. It's almost like a domino effect. Every public service is crashing because you've outsourced parts of it to private companies. Yeah. And no one's bold enough to remedy it.
No, exactly. And Starmer's not. And look, I'm very happy to be proven wrong on all, I'm aware this is a future projection. prediction. So could be wrong. Very happy to be wrong. In fact, I'd be glad to be wrong. But you only need to look at Canada, where their Conservative Party was reduced, I think, to 2 MPs, and now is resurgent because they've essentially gone, how about we just offer to build people houses? Which
very good.
And as, again, regular listeners will know, the housing theory of everything. You will see these uplifts across the breadth of society. And this is why I think Farage poses such a threat, not just to Starmer, but to our politics and society as a whole, because this disaffected generation, who at present the Labour Party is scooping up their votes and is being neglected by the Labour Party so far, they're not loyal. They're not just going to support Keir Starmer till the cows come home because he's the only viable electoral option. If Reform is able to make itself look credible, I think this idea that left-wing people in Britain are young people in Britain are somehow inherently more left-wing than previous generations will come unstuck and be found to be a nonsense very, very quickly. And you will see people who will vote with self-interest who, yes, probably hate the type of things that Nigel Farage has been saying about Muslims, hate the type of rhetoric that Richard Tice has been using in relation to border channel crossings, but would be prepared to hold their nose on things like that because Reform is also saying we're going to build 1 million houses a year.
I think you're bang on about this, particularly our generation not being more left-wing than others. And it's actually a nonsense that's ascribed to it by some of the centrist dads that apparently you have in this studio.
It's after hours.
If you look at... I think there's this sort of like, you're running out of this interim period of people our age getting really, really fed up and really angry because that you're still sort of post-pandemic and there's still sort of a feeling like, oh God, it's going to get better because it's been really terrible and there's been this crisis and an emergency. And so, yeah, every month I'm just about paying my rent and I've got a little bit left over to go to the pub twice a month. And I'm fine. I'm fine with that because it's going to get better. But like, when does that patience run out?
Yeah.
How much longer do you have? How much more grace can you expect from that age group? Particularly an age group that is, pillaged by an obscene tax rate because of their student loans. Loans, by the way, which they will never ever be able to pay off because of the exorbitant interest rate on them. The non-ability to buy a house, the general cost of things.
Yep.
How much more can you expect from them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, I suspect that Nigel will be acutely aware of this, not least because one of the defining, and I'm not accusing him of this, but one of the defining characteristics of much of the radical right in Europe is this great replacement theory, right? Which is a conspiracy theory, that essentially the white population is going to be replaced by immigrants because of declining birth rates and increased levels of immigration. These parties of the radical right are incentivized and desire to boost the birth rate and limit immigration.
Hello, Miriam Cates.
And how are you? Okay, so there's plenty of debate around this policy area, right? But what are some of the things that are driving young couples to not have children? The fact that they don't have secure housing, the fact that their wages don't go very far and they can't afford to have children, and the fact that once they do have children, childcare is so prohibitively expensive that it usually means that one of them isn't going to go back to work.
And then let's also talk about the 2-child benefit cap.
Yeah. There's all kinds of policies here, right?
Did you see there was a big cock up this week as well from HMRC? Loads of people haven't got their child benefit.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Smart. Good work, guys. Yeah, and I think, look, you go into a second election cycle, you're looking for your second term. The Labour Party is going to need its base, and it's currently alienating them. It's like this. We're talking much more macro here, but the sort of trend that's happening now with progressive voters looking at the Greens and possibly even looking at the Lib Dems as outlets for their vote rather than a centrist, centre-right Labour Party. They're not. Those people won't be there in an extra election term. When you need re-election, when your coalition is decreasing but you're looking to hold on to power, you need to energise your base. And neglecting or at times humiliating and mocking that sort of left-wing base in this country, as the Labour Party has been over the last couple of weeks, will come back to bite them.
But the problem is, and what they're benefiting from is there isn't a reform adjacent for Labour. You know how Reform are pulling some of the Conservative policies more toward the right. There is no adjacent for the Labour Party. The Green Party, I'm sorry, the Green Party is not an alternative for young people. If you are thinking about not voting Labour, their policies are nowhere near as progressive enough. And they're sort of doing this weird dance between, their policy seems confused because they're trying to appeal to what would be young people's natural home of, we care about climate change and we would like to build houses for you. But they're also, most of their members are over 65 who are fiscally conservative but socially liberal, and care about the climate, but no way in hell are they going to let a wind turbine be built near their house. And also, and also don't believe in house building. So their policies aren't progressive enough to capture that audience.
Yeah, I think what I would say is it's the NIMBY aspect of their sort of councillors that's their problem. I look at the sort of the policy platform and recommendations, obviously very radical on climate, do support redistribution of wealth via taxation, which obviously is a progressive policy, and far more outspoken, far more critical of Israel and the prosecution of the war in Gaza. And that is actually one of the key things that I know Carla Denyer and the Greens in now Bristol Central, formerly Bristol West, are campaigning on.
That is true about Carla. But the problem that you've got with the Greens is that it is a broad church, and they have not necessarily agreed with each other over the past 6 months. Yeah. It has gone back and forward. It hasn't been like the SNP have had a pretty strong line on it. The Greens haven't.
I like broad church parties. I think it's one of the things that Starmer is getting so woefully wrong.
But they don't have an MP at the moment. If because Caroline has stepped down. Unless Carla and Shana are elected, I don't really think you can make the argument that there should be a broad church among 2 MPs.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they are more viable. I've got to be honest.
Well, I think that they should be more radical. I'm not saying to write off the Greens. I'm saying that actually from what you've said, if I was doing strategy for the Greens, I would say, yes, we should actually, rather than try to be Labour plus, we should actually just have some proper radical policy.
Did you see all the memes about every hotel has a Tice chair?
Yeah, do you know, I did not, everyone was sending that to me last night. I did not understand it at all. And then for some reason, when I saw it on Ed's story, I got it. Yeah. It was like, of course.
Well, because I think the history of the meme is that it's every hotel has a cuck chair. It's like, why, when you go to a hotel room, why is that chair?
Not that Ed reminds me of cucks. It's just because we've spoken.
Well, I didn't say that.
No, but because
you just said that.
Because we've spoken about Ed's favourite thing to send is cuck. And so that's why it reminded me, because I thought, that contextualises it for me.
Yeah.
Ed is by no means on the Richard Tice chair. He's in the Nigel Farage bet. He's fucking your wife.
I love how, just to make absolutely clear, you're like doubling back so hard on this. Where was I going with that? Yeah, I felt bad. Felt bad for Dickie Tice. He was the Prince across the sea, has been across the sea for some time, and everyone, Reform as a vehicle has basically been like, when is Nigel coming back? Answer now. Sorry, Richard. You won't win in Boston, Skegness.
There is a group of the lobby who really want to pick apart Richard Tice's and Nigel Farage's relationship. They're really interested in that friction. I think it's probably the least interesting part of Reform, honestly.
Really? Yeah. What do you think the most interesting part is?
Probably that he's going to be an MP. Probably that bit.
Yeah. Nigel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably that he why he chose Clacton. It's overly simplistic to say he chose it because the polls look good. Don't think it's that at all.
Is it not just because that's where UKIP won with Douglas Carswell?
I don't even think it's just that.
What do you think it is?
I think that, well, should we wait till I come back with the report?
Yeah, okay, yeah. You're after you finish this record, you're going there?
Yeah. Not for work.
No. Canvassing.
Yeah, naturally.
So yeah, bad for Tice. I mean, I feel we've almost done the Tories a disservice talking about this, because I mean the obvious ramification of this is that the Tories are just fucked. Like,
well, let's
completely
for
fucked.
They have done a nice little immigration announcement today, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. I mean, this is it. They're now, the prospect of them winning the election is so far away that you're kind of like, do we pay any attention to them? And you kind of have to, for a sense of balance. But that's the most obvious nail in the coffin. I'm thinking about the future and like what this will mean for the Labour Party. It's because Labour's going to be the next government. So you're sort of, what does it mean for them? But the obvious conclusion to draw from this is that Reform were eating the Tory vote anyway.
That spider's in your hair now.
Really?
Yeah.
Has it jumped in there?
It's in your hair on the left side of your face.
Is it looking like it will bite me?
I don't know. It's going back now.
Into my hair?
Are you getting this on the camera?
I don't think that I don't think high enough depth for that.
What if we had those green lights?
Yeah. Is he actually on my face?
It's gone back here now.
Just leave him in there.
The Conservatives have announced plans for a new annual cap on visas to ensure immigration would fall each year over the next Parliament. Now, what was interesting about this was that
very smart.
James Cleverly was on the broadcast round this morning. Still the Foreign Secretary, but now candidate. Oh, he's
Home
leapt
Secretary.
down.
Home Secretary.
He's all sorry. Why do I always call James Cleverly the Foreign Secretary? Because he was.
He used to be.
Yeah.
I did it the other day.
Anyway. And he was being pushed on the number that they would cap it to. And they won't agree on a number. They can't agree on a number.
Because it'd be insane.
Because it would be too high. Because they'd have to put the number at somewhere like 400,000. Yeah. And they don't want to do that.
No. Well, and also it's like, when it comes to legal migration, you have to say, okay, well, who aren't you taking then? Is it the students? Is it the British Hong Kongers?
It's the Ukrainians. They're not taking them.
Fuck the Ukrainians. Yeah. Back to Kharkiv with you fucking draft dodger.
The thing that I think this also kind of illuminates is the dead end short termism of the Conservatives, because last week when Labour were talking about immigration, every Conservative under the sun was coming out of the woodwork. Well, name the number. What's the number? What number are you going to cap it to, Keir? What number is it? And then no one thought, oh, shit, if we ask them that, they're probably going to ask us that next week. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's such short-termism that you can't even have the foresight to imagine that if you ask that question, you might get asked it back.
But they're just pledged. I mean, Rishi Sunak is...
You nearly said Rishi Sunak, didn't you? You did.
I nearly said Rishi Boobs.
Good for you. Right, I need to crack on.
Okay. Rishi Sunak can't even do easy politics, right? He can't pass the legislation for his phasing out the smoking ban, imposing a phased smoking ban, creating a smokeless generation. That's something that has broad party support. He couldn't get it through Parliament before it was dissolved for this election, right? How on earth is that man going to deliver national service, a cap on visas? He hasn't got it in the locker. It's election by headline, campaign by headline, because he knows he's going to be freed of the responsibility of having to implement the things he's calling for. Do you want to go?
What, are you going to carry on?
Well, no, I thought we spoke about Clacton, didn't we? So we should probably say all the other candidates in Clacton.
Should we?
Well, I mean, that would be the proper way of
I'm fine for time. It's just like Harry needs to come in and get the kit and all that sort of stuff. That's what I'm...
Okay. Let me just see if I can find the list of candidates.
Because the train is at 10:18 and that's the latest one we can get.
That's in an hour's time. Which station are you going from?
Liverpool Street.
Oh, nice. See if I can
but it's just kit assembly. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Where's this list of candidates? Here we go. Other candidates announced as standing in Clacton so far, other than Nigel Farage: Giles Watling of the Conservative Party, Jovan Owusu-Nepal for the Labour Party, Matthew Bensalem for the Liberal Democrats, and Natasha Osborne for the Green Party. Obviously, nominations still open, closing today, so there could be some more there.
That was a heavy one. That
I feel like I just talked at you.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm golden.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ed back tomorrow?
Yeah, but I think we're going to send him to Boston.
Oh, early in the morning?
Possibly.
So...
we might just keep doing it, you and me. I need to buy a microphone so we can do it remotely.
Yeah.
I need to buy us all a microphone so we can do it remotely.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably for the post-show planning meeting.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Enjoy the debate tonight. We will be reacting to it first thing in the morning. Goodbye.